Welcome to C++ programming. In today's lesson, we're going to learn about operator overloading. Now, what is operator overloading? Sometimes it's necessary to set one object equal to another object, but it's not as simple as just to say this object is now equal to that object if you have two objects. Remember, objects have functions and it also has private variables. So which variables must be equal to which variables in that specific objects. So you can't just set, in the case of a normal variable, one variable to be equal to another variable and do the same with objects. Objects are very different. So we need to go and define how to set one object to be equal to another object, and that is operator overloading. So there's multiple operators to overload. You can overload the not equal operator, you can overload the equal operator, there's the increment operator that you can overload, the plus plus and the decrement as well. All and most of the operators you can overload. In this lesson, we will do the the equal operator. So only the one equal sign operator, so that we are able to set one object equal to another object. So let's jump into the coding and see how will this be done. So in code blocks, we will create a new empty file and we will save this file as operator overloading.cpp for C++. I'll zoom in and we will start by including our input and output library iostream using name space std. We will create our main function, return 0. I will save this and I will build and run to check if the program executed successfully. Great, so we can continue. So I will create a class with the name student, and in this class I will have public and private, and in the public section I will have a student constructor, and the student constructor will set the following variables: string name and int age to nothing and the age to 0. I will also create another constructor that will receive parameters as string a and int b, and this constructor will set the name to be equal to a and the age to be equal to b. Now we will go and also create a display function, display, and the display function will output the name, the name, and it will also output the age. In our main function, we're going to create a student1 object, and we will make use of the constructor with parameters. So I will create an object called chain, and the student number will be 1, 2, 3, 4. I will create another student, student2, with no parameters. And then if we go and say student1 dot display and student2 dot display, we will see the oops, there's a semicolon missing. We will see firstly student1 Jane 1 2 3. Let's just check the logs quickly for a small mistake. Student string A. Oops, there's the mistake. I just said string there. So I'm going to build and run. So first of all, we've got Jane and we've got the age as 1 2 3 4. Oh shucks, she can't be that old. So let's quickly change that. Jane's 20 years old. So Jane, age 20, and then student2 has no name and age as 0. So what we actually want to do with operator overloading is we want to have the ability to say student2 must be equal to student1, and we want this functionality. We want to be able to set student2 to be equal to student1, but we can't just do it as I explained, because this is an object, this is an object, and it's a much more intricate thing compared to a variable. Variables are easy. We can set one integer variable to be equal to another integer variable. That's not a problem, but with objects this becomes a little bit more difficult. So we need to use operator overloading and specify how we would set these two or the one object to be equal to another object. So let's check how we do operator overloading. Operator overloading is a function that we use. So let's first start with, we will define the operator overloading function as constant, and then just want to make sure we will say student ampersand operator and the equal operator. Then inside this function we will say const again, and we use the constants so that we don't change the actual operate or not object. So we are going to actually send this object as a parameter to this function. So we're using const there. So const student ampersand operator equals sign student ampersand. So we are receiving now a object as a parameter. Now let's start and do the coding. So what we will do is we will have an if statement in the beginning just to ask, is the right hand side, okay, the right hand side. So we will say give this parameter a name, and we will give it right, and we're going to say is right unequal to this, and this is where we use the this operator. So we're sending this object as a parameter to this operator overloading function. We're grabbing it in this parameter and we're asking if they are unequal to each other, then we will set them to be equal to each other. And how would we do this? So we're first checking, are they the same thing? And if they are not, we can then start with our next phase. So what we will do is we will say this dot name, that's our first private variable, and we will say this dot name will be equal to right, and it's the right hand side after the equal object dot name. So the left hand side now becomes equal to the right hand side. The names are now equal, and then we will do the age as well. So we'll say this dot age, and I believe that there may be a mistake. Let's just check. This dot age is right dot age, and let's first run, check where's the problems, and the problem is name in this, which is pointer type, yes. So what we need to do is, and this is where my small mistake is, we need to dereference this pointer before we can use the dot operator. You can also use the arrow operator if you would like that. So if we build and run, we will still see name Jane, age 20, name nothing, age 0. So that's for the two objects. Now what we will do is we will set student 2 to be equal to student 1, and then we can run the display for student 2 again and see what happens to the private variables. So let's run and see. So the first time, the first display here, student 1.display, we have name is Jane, age is 20. The next display, we see name is nothing, age is 0. Then we set student 2 to be equal to student 1, and then we display student 2, and student 2 is now name's Jane, age is 20. And that's how we set objects to be equal to each other, by using operator overloading for the equal operator. So just a quick recap. What's on the right hand side of the equal operator will be our parameter that will be sent to the operator overloading function. So right will be this object, and then this will be this object. So this is the object on the left hand side, and we say the object on the left hand side, its name will be equal to the object on the right hand side's name, and the same for age. And that's how we do operator overloading for the equal sign. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you soon.